seconds after lifting off from Los Angeles. A British Airways Boeing 747 is rocked by a series of violent explosions. Engine number 2 is surging, spitting 30-foot flames into the night sky, while 350 passengers scream in terror. But the real drama isn't the fire, it's the choice. Instead of landing, the captain points the nose toward London, 5,000 miles away. Where are you watching from? Comment below. This is the controversial story of a $300,000 gamble that turned a routine failure into an international legal battle. The night of February 20th, 2005 began with 119 metric tons of fuel and a long journey ahead. As the Queen of the Skies climbed through the murky LAX air, the left inboard engine suffered a catastrophic airflow disruption. The loud bangs heard by the passengers were actually backfires, pressure escaping the engine as it struggled to breathe. Captain Derek May and his 2 first officers immediately throttled back, and the flames died down. Here is where the expert trap begins. In a twin-engine plane, losing an engine is an automatic emergency landing. But the 747 is a 4-engine beast designed to fly perfectly well on 3. The pilots faced a massive decision. Do they turn back or press on? To return to LAX, they would have to dump 70 tons of fuel into the Pacific Ocean. That fuel alone was worth a fortune, and the total cost of the diversion, including passenger hotels and aircraft repairs, would exceed $300,000. Captain May consulted with British Airways maintenance in London. The airline's preference was clear: continue if safe. The pilots checked their flight management computer, FMC. It predicted they would arrive in London with 7 tons of fuel, well above the legal minimum. They reasoned that the US was full of diversion airports. If something else broke over Chicago or New York, they could land there. For now, the plane was stable. The captain canceled the pan-pan status and set a course for the Atlantic. However, they were ignoring a fundamental law of physics. On 3 engines, the 747 cannot fly at its most efficient high-altitude levels. They were forced to stay in the thick air at 27,000 feet, where the drag is higher and the fuel burns faster. They were betting that the atmospheric conditions over the ocean would play fair. It was a gamble based on a computer's best guess, and they were about to find out that the house always wins. But that decision would have been enough to destroy most people. What happened next made everything before it look minor. As the aircraft reached the eastern seaboard, the captain returned from his rest break to a deteriorating situation. The North Atlantic air traffic controllers couldn't give them their preferred altitude because of oncoming traffic. They were stuck even lower at 29,000 feet. The fuel prediction at London began to drop. 6.5 tons, 6 tons, 5.5 tons. If you're finding this study of high-stakes corporate and cockpit pressure vital, hit the subscribe button now. We break down the invisible forces of aviation history every week. Then came the wind. A stronger-than-forecast headwind began to push against the giant jet, eating away at their remaining margins. By the time they reached the coast of Ireland, the safety cushion had vanished. They no longer had enough fuel to safely reach London Heathrow. The crew decided to divert to Manchester, but a new nightmare emerged. Because they had been using a non-standard fuel transfer procedure from the BA manual rather than the Boeing manual, a massive fuel imbalance occurred. Tank number 2, the one belonging to the dead engine, was full of fuel that the pilots couldn't seem to access. Suddenly, the outboard tank for engine number 4 triggered a low-level warning. They were now in a triple emergency: a dead engine, a critical fuel shortage, and a plane that was becoming laterally unbalanced. The captain, realizing the gravity of the situation, declared a full mayday. He took manual control. His mind racing through a fuel system he realized he didn't fully understand in this specific 3-engine configuration. They were descending toward Manchester with alarms blaring. 350 passengers finally realizing that their routine engine failure had turned into a race for survival. She thought she had won. She had no idea what Thomas was already putting in motion. Flight 268 touched down in Manchester with 5.8 tons of fuel remaining. They had made it, but the fallout was explosive. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, took the unprecedented step of suing British Airways, claiming the airline had operated an unairworthy aircraft over U.S. soil. The investigation by the AIB revealed a disturbing gap in training. It turned out the pilots hadn't been properly trained on how to manage the 747's complex fuel cross-feed system when one engine is out for a long-duration flight. The BA manual actually contradicted the Boeing manual, leading the pilots to make selections that trapped fuel in the wrong tanks. But the biggest takeaway was the commercial pressure link. While the captain technically had the final say, the fact that he was in constant contact with a company that was losing $300,000 by the minute created a cognitive tunnel. He was looking for reasons to continue rather than reasons to stop. British Airways Flight 268 became one of aviation's most debated examples of cockpit decision-making. The Boeing 747, powered by Rolls-Royce engines, experienced a serious engine problem shortly after takeoff from Los Angeles. One of the engines suffered from what investigators later described as casing wear, a condition where internal engine components gradually wear down the surrounding housing. During departure, that weakness triggered a compressor surge powerful enough to shut the engine down completely. Technically, the aircraft was still capable of flying safely on 3 engines. The Boeing 747 had been designed with that redundancy in mind. But what transformed the incident into a worldwide case study was not the mechanical failure itself. It was the decision that followed. Instead of diverting to a nearby airport in North America, Captain Peter Burkill and the crew chose to continue the flight across the Atlantic toward Manchester with more than 350 passengers on board. For nearly 11 hours, the aircraft crossed oceans and remote airspace, operating with reduced safety margins. To the airline, the decision demonstrated confidence in the aircraft's engineering and avoided the enormous disruption and financial cost of an emergency diversion. To aviation regulators and investigators, however, it represented a dangerous gamble. The greatest concern was not that the aircraft could not physically fly on 3 engines. The concern was the chain of secondary risks that came with extending the journey for thousands of miles. If another engine experienced trouble, if unexpected winds increased fuel burn, or if the complicated fuel balancing system created an error, the aircraft could have faced a catastrophic fuel-out situation over the ocean with limited diversion options. That is why Flight 268 became one of the most important decision-making studies in modern aviation training. It revealed the conflict that pilots sometimes face between operational pressure and conservative safety judgment. Captains are trained to think calmly under pressure, but experience itself can become dangerous when confidence slowly turns into overconfidence. This is what safety experts later described as the expert trap. The crew knew the 747 was certified to fly on 3 engines. They trusted the aircraft's design, their own experience, and decades of aviation procedures. But they focused so heavily on what the airplane could do that they underestimated what could still go wrong over an 11-hour flight. The real danger was not the failed engine. It was the growing list of risks created by continuing the journey. The aftermath changed British Airways' policy permanently. Today, a crew facing the same situation would be strongly encouraged to land at the nearest suitable airport rather than continue a long-haul flight. The industry gradually recognized that avoiding inconvenience or financial loss should never outweigh reducing exposure to additional risk. Ironically, this exact dilemma is disappearing from aviation altogether. Modern aircraft, such as the Boeing 787 Dreamliner and the Airbus A350, rely heavily on automated systems and stricter operational procedures. In many cases, if an engine fails, the safest choice is immediate diversion. The room for human gambling with fuel, time, and distance is being engineered out of the cockpit itself. Flight 268 remains a lasting reminder that experience alone does not guarantee safety. Sometimes the most dangerous decision is believing you are skilled enough to keep pushing forward. There is a final, chilling reason why the FAA was so aggressive in their lawsuit against British Airways, involving a secret safety memo that was leaked just weeks after the crash. To see the documents they try to hide, Watch this video next. It shows the true war for the skies.